The comment came during our monthly family dinner at the seafood place. My son, Doyle, 28, sat next to me in his usual jeans and t-shirt. He'd driven over in his old Honda Civic, the one with the dent in the passenger side door. Susie had arrived in her leased BMW talking loudly about the new subdivision where she and her husband, Harvey, were looking at houses. The starter homes are just $750,000, she announced. Of course, we're looking at the executive models. Those start at $1.2 million. Doyle nodded politely. He'd always been quiet. He preferred to observe rather than confront. Susie had always interpreted that as weakness. "We're hoping to close by the spring," Susie continued. "Harvey's bonus should cover the down payment." She glanced at Doyle. "Can't say that for everyone." My mom shifted uncomfortably. "The breadsticks are excellent today." But Susie wasn't finished. "Some people are just meant to be owners, and some are just tenants. It's not a judgment. It's reality." Doyle kept eating, his expression neutral. He'd learned over the years to rarely take Susie's bait. He just let her talk, and then he went back to his life, the one she knew nothing about. "Take Doyle, for example," Susie said, gesturing with her fork. 28 and still renting that little studio apartment downtown. No offense, Doyle, but at some point you have to admit that homeownership just might not be in the cards for everyone. "Susie," my dad said quietly, "that's enough. I'm just being realistic, Dad. The housing market is brutal. If you haven't built equity by your late 20s, you're basically locked out forever, especially on a tech guy's salary." She said tech guy the way one might say janitor. Doyle worked as a principal systems engineer for a tech firm, but Susie had never bothered to learn the difference. "Doyle does just fine," I said, my voice tight. "I'm sure he does," Susie agreed, false compassion dripping from her tone. "Renting isn't a failure. Lots of people rent their whole lives. It's just—" She paused dramatically, limiting. "You can't build wealth. You can't accumulate equity. You can't really put down roots. You're always one lease renewal away from having to move." Harvey nodded, though he looked vaguely uncomfortable. His 12-year-old daughter, Sadie, was absorbed in her phone, ignoring the entire conversation. "Your son is never going to own a home," Susie said, laughing as she reached for her wine glass. "And that's fine. Not everyone is cut out for real estate. Some people are just born to be tenants." The table fell silent. Mom stared at her plate. Dad set down his fork. Sadie glanced up for a second before returning to her phone. Doyle took a sip of water, completely calm. "If you say so, Aunt Susie." Something about his quiet acceptance seemed to irritate her more than any argument would have. "I do say so. I'm not trying to be mean, Doyle. I'm trying to help you accept reality. The sooner you stop dreaming about owning and focus on being a good tenant, the happier you'll be. That's when I'd had enough." I took out my phone and opened the folder where Doyle had asked me to keep copies of his property documents. He'd given me access months ago, saying, "Just in case you ever need proof of anything." I'd thought he was being paranoid. Now I understood. "Susie," I said calmly, "I want to show you something." I opened the first file. The deed to a 3-bedroom condo in the South Congress area, purchased 2 years ago for $450,000. Current estimated value, $580,000. I turned the phone to her. Property number 1. Susie squinted at the screen, then her eyes widened. "What is this?" "Doyle's first investment property. He bought it when he was 26. I swiped to the next document. Property number 2, a duplex in the North Loop neighborhood. He bought it 18 months ago. He lives in one unit and rents out the other. That's not—" Susie started. I swiped again. "And property number 3, a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house in Westlake Hills. He closed on it last month. Paid cash." The color drained from Susie's face. That address looked familiar. "Sound familiar?" I asked. 1847 Live Oak Parkway. The one you told me 3 months ago was your dream house. The one you lost because someone came in with an all-cash offer. $50,000 over asking. No contingencies." Susie's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Everyone had stopped eating. Dad was leaning forward, peering at my phone. Mom had her hand over her mouth. Even Sadie had put down her phone. "But he's a tech guy," Susie finally whispered. "He's a principal systems engineer," I corrected. "He makes $250,000 a year, plus bonuses. He's been maxing out his 401k contributions since he was 22. He lives below his means and invested in real estate instead of leasing luxury cars." Harvey sat frozen, his face pale. "But he drives that old Honda and he dresses—" Susie stammered. "He drives a paid-off car and dresses comfortably," I said, "because he's smart enough to know that looking wealthy and being wealthy are two very different things." I swiped through a few more documents. "Do you want to see his stock portfolio? Or maybe his savings account balance?" "Oh, here's a good one. The quarterly report from his property management company. Turns out that Duplex generates $2,800 a month in net rental income after expenses." Susie looked like she was going to be sick. "But I'm not finished," I said, echoing her earlier words. "See, there's something else you should know about that dream house you lost." I pulled up another document. "Doyle didn't buy it to live in. He bought it as an investment property. He already has a tenant lined up, a nice family relocating from Denver. They're paying $5,500 a month." I looked directly at Susie. "That's more than your mortgage payment would have been, isn't it? The one you couldn't get approved for because Harvey's bonus was smaller than you expected." Harvey shut his eyes. "How?" Susie began. "You told Mom about the trouble with the loan," I said. "Last week when you were crying about losing the house, you said it was meant to be and that material things don't matter. Mom told me because she was worried about you. She had no idea Doyle was the all-cash buyer who outbid you." Doyle finally spoke, his voice low. "I didn't know it was your dream house, Aunt Susie. I just knew it was a good investment in a high appreciation area. The inspection came back clean. The foundation was solid, and the rental market there is strong." Susie stared at him as if seeing him for the first time. "When did this happen?" Dad asked, his voice filled with awe. "When did you buy 3 properties?" "Over the last 2 years," Doyle said. "I started researching real estate investing when I was 25. I saved aggressively, learned market analysis, and studied neighborhood trends. The condo was my first buy. I was nervous, but it appreciated faster than I expected." "Why didn't you tell us?" Mom asked. Doyle shrugged. It felt like bragging. "And honestly, I like it when nobody treats me differently. When Aunt Susie makes comments about tenants and tech guys, it doesn't bother me because I know the truth. Her opinion doesn't change my balance sheet. But you let her—" Mom began. "Let her what? Have opinions? She can have them, even if they're based on assumptions." Doyle took another bite of his pasta. "I don't need external validation for my choices." I watched Susie's face cycle through emotions: shock, embarrassment, anger, and something that looked like grudging respect. "I don't get it," she said finally. "How can you afford all that on a tech salary?" "Tech salaries are actually quite good," Doyle said patiently, "especially in systems engineering. Plus, I live simply. I don't need a new car every 3 years or designer clothes. I buy what I need, invest the rest, and let compound interest do the heavy lifting." "But you live in a studio," Susie protested weakly. "I live in one half of a duplex," Doyle corrected. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, nice backyard. I just call it a studio around family because it's easier than explaining my house hacking strategy every time we get together. "The Honda has been paid off since 2019, Doyle continued. "It costs me almost nothing in maintenance. Why would I take on a car payment when I can put that money into an appreciating asset?" "The clothes," Susie tried. "Comfortable and functional. I work from home 3 days a week. Nobody cares if I wear jeans and T-shirts." Doyle gave a small smile. "Nobody, except you, apparently." The waiter appeared, clearly sensing the tension, and retreated quickly without asking about dessert. "I'm sorry," Susie said suddenly. I've been such a snob." It was the first genuine thing she'd said all night. "You've been making assumptions," Doyle said. "People do that. You see someone in an old car wearing casual clothes and you assume they're struggling. But there's a big difference between struggling and choosing simplicity." "I feel like an idiot," Susie said quietly. "No," Doyle said. Just maybe ask questions next time before you make pronouncements about someone's future. Sadie, who had been quiet the whole time, looked up from her phone. That's so awesome, Doyle. You're like a secret millionaire or something. Not a millionaire, Doyle laughed. Not yet, but I'm building wealth, steadily. In 10 years, maybe 15, I'll have a significant passive income from rent. That's the goal. Financial independence before I'm 45. That's incredible, Dad said. Truly incredible, son. Thanks, Grandpa. Susie stared at her mostly uneaten food. My dream house, she said softly. I can't believe you own my dream house. It's a good house, Doyle acknowledged. Solid foundation, new roof, updated wiring. The tenants seem excited. They have 2 kids and a dog. It'll be a good home for a family. Something in Susie's expression broke. We were going to have 2 more kids. Fill up those extra bedrooms. Sadie wanted her own bathroom. You'll find another house, I said, more gently now. The market's tough, but you'll find something. Not like that one, Susie whispered. That one was perfect. An awkward silence fell over the table. Doyle looked uncomfortable for the first time all night. Look, he said, I bought it as an investment, but that doesn't mean it has to stay that way forever. If you and Harvey really want it and you can get the financing together, we could work something out. I haven't signed a long-term lease with the tenants yet, just a 6-month trial period. Susie looked up, shocked. What? I'm serious, Doyle said. If you can get a mortgage approved, I'll sell it to you for what I paid. No profit. Just cover my costs and what I put down. You'd do that? Susie's voice was small. Family is family, Doyle said simply. Even when they tell you at dinner you're going to be a renter for life. Susie let out a laugh that was almost a sob. I'm sorry, Doyle. I've been awful to you. Yes, Doyle agreed. You really have been. For years. I know. Susie wiped her eyes. I don't know why. Maybe because you never seem to care what anyone thinks, and that bothered me. I've always cared too much about appearances. We can tell, Doyle said dryly. The BMW is a lease, Susie admitted. We can barely make the payments. Harvey's bonus was half what we expected, and we've been scrambling ever since. We're one unexpected bill away from serious trouble. Harvey nodded, looking miserable. So stop, Doyle said. Sell the BMW, buy something practical. Cut the expenses that don't bring you real joy. Build an emergency fund. It's not complicated, it's just hard. Spoken by the guy with 3 properties, Susie said, but the malice was gone. Spoken by the guy who ate ramen noodles for 2 years while saving for his first down payment, Doyle corrected. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't Instagrammable. But it worked. Mom reached across the table and squeezed Doyle's hand. I'm so proud of you. I should have said it years ago. You tell me all the time, Grandma. Doyle smiled. Not for this, Mom said. For the person you've become. Quiet, thoughtful, and a hell of a lot smarter than the rest of us about what really matters. We finished dinner in a strange new atmosphere. Not exactly comfortable, but honest, in a way our family gatherings had never been before. Susie asked Doyle questions about his investment strategy, and he answered patiently, occasionally pulling up spreadsheets on his phone to illustrate points about cash flow and appreciation rates. As we left the restaurant, Susie pulled Doyle aside. I heard her say, "Thank you for the offer on the house. We're going to talk to a financial advisor and see if we can make it work. If we can't, I understand, and I'm going to stop judging people by their cars and their clothes." That would be nice, Doyle said. In the parking lot, Sadie ran up to Doyle. Can you teach me about investing? I have $500 saved from birthdays. Sure, Doyle said. We can talk about index funds and compound interest. Starting at 12 is perfect. You've got time on your side. Sadie beamed. As Doyle drove away in his dented Honda, I stood with my parents, watching his taillights disappear. I underestimated him, Dad said quietly. We all did. He didn't want to be estimated one way or the other, I said. That was the whole point. He just wanted to build his life without the commentary. Smart kid, Dad said. Smart man, I corrected. We went our separate ways, but I felt a shift in the family dynamic. Susie had been humbled, yes, but more importantly, she'd been educated. And Doyle, who had never sought approval or respect, had earned both by just being himself, quiet, thoughtful, and profoundly financially astute. Later that night, Doyle called me. "Thanks for showing them the documents. I know it wasn't subtle." "You're welcome," I said. And subtle wasn't working. Susie needed facts, not hints. "You think she'll really change?" he asked. "Maybe," I said. "People can surprise you." "Yeah," Doyle agreed, "but I'm not banking on it. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, building equity, staying humble, and letting my results do the talking." "That's my boy," I said. 3 months later, Susie and Harvey bought the house from Doyle. They worked with a financial planner, cut their spending dramatically, and got approved for a mortgage. Doyle sold it to them at cost, just as he'd promised. At the closing, Susie hugged him. "Thank you," she said, "for the house and for the wake-up call. We've changed a lot since that dinner." "Good," Doyle said simply. "I'm glad it's going to a family who will love it." As for Doyle, he had already closed on property number 4, a small 6-unit apartment building. "Better cash flow," he explained when I asked, "and I'm getting better at screening tenants." My son, quiet and unassuming, building an empire one modest property at a time, while the world wrote him off. I couldn't have been prouder.